Just want to show you some pictures from France now, where hundreds and thousands of protesters are gathering on what is the 12th day of nationwide strikes against pension reforms. The Constitutional Court is expected to rule on the legality of the draft pensions law, which would raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Security is on high alert across several cities as over 250 protests are happening throughout the country. Our Paris correspondent Hugh Schofield asked one protester why it was important for him to be on the streets of Paris.
I feel a bit, I'm angry because the government is not listening to the people. So far they've been only demonstrating pacifically, and they are not listening to the people, to what they want, to also what economists say, and they are just, they are like in a crusade for their own political opinion and not about what we really have to do for the system. Like each country has its own problematics. In France, it's a bit different, and also we've seen it in Italy, in Germany. Everybody is saying, "Okay, don't do the same mistakes." And at the moment, the government is doing the same. And yeah.
But if people are living much longer at the end of their lives, are living in retirement for many, many more years, which they are, everyone is. Surely it is just inevitable that people are going to have to work a bit longer to pay for that.
It's actually not inevitable. You can choose to take more of what you take on your salary during your whole life. And actually this is what all French people agree to do. I mean, the vast majority of French people disagree with this reform. They don't want to work longer, but they agree to be like to take more on their salary day to day.
Really? Because I thought we were living through a time when everyone was worried about cost of living, about inflation. Surely people won't be at all happy to give more contributions.
Yes, but actually studies show that. So it's not. It's what we are ready to do. So the government has to listen to people when they demonstrate, and there is also like a feeling of frustration because the government has the feeling that they've been elected to do that. It's actually not the case, and President Macron said it just the day after he was elected. He agreed that he's been elected to fight the far right and not because of his program. And today, one of his arguments is that he's doing that because of his program.
That was Hugh Schofield talking a little earlier, but now we're just taking you back again to those pictures from the streets of Paris. Let's have a listen to see if we can hear what's being said. We're watching pictures from the streets of Paris. Those protests now, it's the 12th day of protests over these pension reforms. Not sure whether there's somebody lying on the floor there. It's always difficult to get a sense, isn't it, I think, from these pictures as to sort of how widespread protests are. Certainly where the cameras are at the moment, there looks to be tear gas being fired. There's a sound of some sort of flares in the background. It could just be flares, the smoke there. Like I say, slightly difficult to accurately describe exactly what's going on. Certainly we know there are hundreds of protests going on across France today. As we say, it's the 12th day of these protests over pension reform, a really significant day tomorrow, as we were hearing from our correspondent there, because the Constitutional Court is due to make a decision over these pension reforms that have been pushed through by Emmanuel Macron as to whether they are legitimate, whether they're legal or not. And as we heard from one union member, if it's decided that they aren't legal, then these protests are set to continue. Not just in Paris, but across France, there have been protests. Transport services, flights have been cancelled, train services affected. And as I say, tomorrow, potentially very significant because it will be decided whether these pension reforms, so raising the pension age from 62 to 64, whether that is legal. And if it is legal, President Macron has told reporters that he will be going forward with these reforms. He hopes to have those changes signed into law immediately, which means they could enter into force before the end of 2023. So once again, those pension reforms from 62 to 64. Like I say, these pictures from Paris. Our correspondent was saying a little earlier that he hadn't necessarily seen an escalation in protests over the 12 days that they've been happening. So they've been, happening weekly. Also talking about the fact that, yes, pension reform is certainly the headline for these strikes, but also with so many people involved, he was saying, there are other agendas there. Anti-capitalist people, lots of different agendas all kind of coalescing into these weekly protests. And as I say, important tomorrow potentially, because this decision may well come, is due to come, to decide whether what the president is choosing to do to push through the reform is whether that is indeed going to be put into law. And if so, then, as we said, Emmanuel Macron will say that he would hope to have those changes in place by the end of 2023.
Vous avez peur des Black Blocs? Bientôt, les milices populaires, avec des casques et des manques de pioches. Voilà, autogestion.
Clearly passions still running very high there in Paris. Earlier today, demonstrators stormed the headquarters of the French luxury goods firm LVMH. That was in Paris. And as we say, all eyes tomorrow will be on the Constitutional Council to find out their decision. We'll leave those pictures in Paris for the moment, but obviously bring you up to date if there are any developments there. But for